The wait is over. You were waiting, right?
Oh, God. No. Please, no.
The end is nigh. Darwin and Cat are back.
For a minute, just a minute, really brief minute, Darwin and Cat, mostly Cat, were kind of famous for just a minute. How were we famous, Cat?
We were on reality television.
We, during that wave of reality TV, when reality TV was the thing, we were on Wife Swap.
Each week from across America, 2 families are chosen. This week, the Noel family from upstate New York. Shock Jock Cat is a wild and crazy morning DJ.
So, Darwin, you know, I traded lives with a family of pet cremators.
Sue Ann and Tom McGoldrick run a very serious business.
Think of our business as a funeral home, except for pets.
Although mostly you sacrificed, you took one for the team, and this was a big thing. Like, I still can't believe today that sometimes I forget I was on the show with you, and I have to thank you for that experience.
Oh, God. I don't know if you should thank me, but it's something that we did. Yes.
Mostly you. I would say it was probably 80-90% you, maybe. I don't think the ratio.
It exploited my life and not yours.
Yes. I was just there to be kind of I guess I was part of the exploitation in a way. I don't know. I never thought of it that way.
Nah. Well, let's just get into it.
All right, so how does this start? I know you joked a few episodes ago about applying to the Extreme Makeover Home Edition after a sketchy pap smear, but you really wanted to help boost our show, and you were willing to do this to the team. How did you apply to Wife Swap? And there were 2 shows at the time, right? There was Wife Swap and Trading Spouses.
Right. But everybody remembers Wife Swap.
That was the only thing about Trading Spouses was that gargantuan Christian woman who was screaming gargoyles, and her.
But I think my episode rivals it. So if you're playing along at home, I was on the episode McGoldrick, Noel, and it's season 4, episode 10.
Hold on. McGoldrick /Noel, Noel.
Episode 10 of season 4. And the way it came about is Wife Swap was always seeking certain types of families. Like, are you Amish? Are you a fruitarian? Are you a shock jock? Are you in radio? So they called our cluster and they started calling and emailing all the jocks who worked around us saying, hey, do you want to go on Wife Swap? Are you married? Do you have kids? But they didn't reach out to us. And Kelly Lynn, who worked on the mom music station, got an email from them. And I kind of looked over her shoulder and I said, Kelly, I bet if I reach out to Wife Swap, tell them what I do, tell them what I'm about, they will call me immediately. And she's like, okay, try it. So I emailed them and they called me immediately. They were calling my cell phone. They were calling my ex-husband's cell phone. They were calling my desk phone at work. And we got the ball rolling. I was considered for the show.
And I remember this. All the phones were ringing simultaneously. There's no exaggeration.
It just blew
They were
up.
calling. Yeah, everywhere. It was like you hit send, and minutes later, it was like...
Magic.
Yeah, it was crazy. And I said, what did you tell them? And you had to make a video explaining yourself, too.
Oh, we made a video together. We made a very wacky, comedic video with a lot of us running around the station and I don't know if we threw a pie at each other. I have no idea. But whatever it was, they absolutely loved us and they wanted to get us on board immediately.
It was cool. It was kind of fun. But it was before this all happened, one of the big things, and this partially goes back to when our show launched, it partially goes back to Poodles, the consultant, was the big secret. We don't want the show to be Mommy and the Homo. Nobody in our listening audience had any idea that, 1, you were married,
right,
and 2, you had a son.
Bum, bum, bum.
So we were about to drop 3 big bombs on our audience,
and this was
all at once.
Well over a year into our show, where people are listening every day and thinking they're getting to know us, and they just think, Cat, she's a funny party slut. Not really. I'm kind of married with a kid who's, in grade school.
Yeah, you had a mom life. And
yeah, I had a complete mom life. I mean, I didn't have the minivan, but it was pretty freaking close.
It was pretty amazing that we kept that. We went to some extremes sometimes to keep that secret as well. And it was, in retrospect, really dumb because afterward people thought you were the MILF.
Well, it was dumb because I think we waited too long. And then once the show aired, it was like confusing. It was like, wait, what? You spawned?
I think it was actually, we were probably 2 years into our run at that point too. It was a long time. So but it just turns into this like, I can't believe this is happening thing.
I think we should talk about Sue Ann and Tom a little bit. So wife swap, the whole concept is they trade a couple, you trade lives with somebody who is the exact opposite of you. Now, I think I must be a really nice person because Sue Ann was probably, even to this day, the meanest person I have ever met in my life. Would you say that's accurate?
She had rectum mouth.
Well, I don't want to pick on her looks, but sometimes they say you get the face you deserve. And I think that happened. She was very, very mean. Tom was her husband, and he was a real straight-laced kind of fuddy-duddy guy, but at his core, he was a really nice guy. But the weird thing is they were 20, 25 years older than I was. So it was like I traded with Sue Ann and I became like Tom's weird daughter.
That's a good way to describe how it worked out on the show. Yeah,
it was very creepy.
He seemed so nice, though. And I remember afterward you talking about how sweet he was.
He really was. We filmed for a couple of days and he was a little icy to me. And then we just started talking and he just opened up. And after we would, wrap for the day, we just like watch movies and hang out. And he was a really nice guy.
Sue Ann, on the other hand, was the opposite of that. She came in with the attitude that right away that we were awful people. A few days in, she didn't know what to make of me because she did say to me, I don't understand why you're so nice. You seem like a nice person and you seem really friendly and you seem really helpful. I don't get it because you do this show and you work with her and she's horrible and she's hard. She'd never met you.
Right.
But she had this idea that you were the devil incarnate.
Yeah, the swap moms, as they called us, we don't meet until the end. So she just knew the kind of job I have, and she just made up her mind that I was a complete narcissist and mean and a slut.
I hate chalk jocks. I despise them.
She went to our boss at the time and said, Cat is a piece of trash, and you need to get her off this show. She tried to get me fired.
Yeah, she asked me, who's the guy in charge here? I need to talk to him about her. And I said, what? Well, that's just weird. Why would you do that? And well, I need to. I know I got her figured out. I got her numbered out. And she would say everything 3 times.
That's
that
right.
Was the weird
that's right.
Her. I got her
I don't like her.
out.
I got her figured out. I got her figured out. Figured out.
I got her.
Which was absolutely, to me, mind-boggling. And I mean mind-boggling to me. Like, totally, like, mind-boggling.
It's like, what? And I was just like, oh my, and she did. She marched right into the boss's office and was just vomiting, just awful. And I couldn't stop it. I mean, he wasn't going to listen to her, obviously.
Well, no,
but...
I mean, a lot of people who she complained to about me, our coworkers, told me, they're like, Sue Ann came up and told me what a piece of just garbage you are. And when we defended you, she got really mad.
Yeah, she was going to like the mom music station.
Everybody.
She was going to everybody.
Everyone would listen.
I couldn't imagine going into somebody's workplace where I was the stranger in front of all these TV cameras and just shitting on them.
Yeah.
And repeatedly being told, we love Cat, and saying, well, you're wrong about her. Like, that just blew my mind. But I also remember, now there were times I would come to your defense, but I also remembered beforehand, you and I had a really long talk about the show. There were 2 things that you said that I obeyed. And you said,
I remember.
And they were important. You said, speak in sound bites. That's important for what they're going to use. But also, whatever you do is forever. Whatever you say is forever. Be careful in what you say and how you do it. And I thought, you know what? If I get into it with her, they can always edit it. And it can be cut and it can be trimmed. And I was really careful because I think what they were doing was trying to get her to instigate something where they could edit it.
Right.
And I didn't want that on the episode where maybe when you're trying to argue with somebody, you give them a little to try to get them somewhere.
Sure.
And I wanted,
didn't give her any rope.
Right. And I didn't want them to take that in the episode to look like I was giving some rope to her that makes you look bad.
Right. Here's the thing. A lot of people who have done reality TV and do not come off well say, oh, they edited it. And yes, they did. But, and this is what I told you, Darwin, they use what you give them. So don't give them anything that you wouldn't be proud of doing. Now, I can't say I obeyed that completely on the show, but I really, really tried.
I had less camera time, so I was able to do that easier.
You did a good job.
Well, thank you. But you did too. That was solid advice because that was always in my head.
They use what you give them.
Yep.
Now, I want to go back a little bit and just talk about how the show starts filming. Now, everybody knows that you trade spouses, right? But what they do at first is they film for about a week. They filmed a week at my house. And then I would fly and they would film a week at the swap house. Now, they don't tell you where you're going. It's supposed to be a complete surprise. And one day in the middle of filming at my house, and they're filming like my routine and I'm vacuuming and I'm the wacky mom in the shock job. I'm not going to say his name. I will take this name to the grave. But somebody who worked on the show came up to me and said, hey, are you excited you're going to San Antonio? And I just threw my hands like, shh, you're not supposed to say that. And he went white because it was like his first day on the job. And he goes, oh my God, Kat, I could get fired for this. Oh my, I said, dude, I'm not going to say anything. Don't worry. And I've kept the secret to this day. But
you immediately, yes. What did you immediately do?
But there's an asterisk here. I immediately ran to the bathroom with my phone and I called you. And I'm like, Darwin, I'm going to San Antonio. And just at that minute, they were banging on my door because they confiscate your phone.
But I'm like, huh?
Where are you going?
What? Can you speak up?
San Antonio, Texas.
Huh?
Cat. I'm like, just a minute. I'm having a problem. I had some Taco Bell. I'll be right there.
Are you in the bathroom? What's wrong? You're going to Texas Roadhouse?
But I got it through to you and you knew where I was going. And I turned my phone off and I said, oh, I'm done. Here's my phone. To this day, this guy and I are still friends. We're still in touch here and there. He's a really big director now and stuff. But I will never tell. You can Guantanamo me. I won't say who did that.
And you tell me everything and you've never told me his name.
That's true.
And I won't ask. Your secret is safe. I won't ask. And it was funny when they were filming you beforehand because they wanted to film your routine in the morning, but they did it like 2 p.m.
We had to recreate a lot of scenes. So a lot of people ask, is it real? Is reality TV real? And the real answer is yes and no, because they will set up a scene, but they don't dictate what you do in the scene. They capture what you do in the scene. So they'll say, okay, Kat, it's 3:30 in the afternoon and the sun is out, but we have to film you sleeping in bed and getting up out of bed. So yeah, I mean, it's kind of set up that way.
One of my I think the thing I thought was the funniest was just how cheap they were overall, which we'll talk a little bit about. But I loved, because I was at your house when they do the family waves goodbye, and I wasn't in that scene, but I was there because we would hang out a lot anyway. So it wasn't abnormal for me to be at
You were
your
always
house.
at my house. That's okay.
Yeah, I was always there.
Yep.
And I just remember, I don't know why it's still funny to me. They put you in the limo and they film you driving off in the limo.
Oh yeah. I roll the window down. I'm waving to everyone going off to my big adventure.
And then they got to the corner and they kicked you out of the limo.
They're like, Kat, you can get out now. I'm like, what? They drove me 20 feet. They're like, we need to bring the limo back now. We only have it for 45 minutes.
And they put you like into a Prius or something.
Yeah, they loaded me into like a Sprinter van and then took me to the airport.
You were like,
what? I thought I was
great.
fancier than this. I was fancy for about 20 feet.
I just thought that was so funny. I'm like, why are they stopping? Is she coming back? Did she change her mind? Nope, they were shoving you into some other vehicle. Yeah, I forgot what it was.
And it's embarrassing. It's like the big goodbye. And then they bring me back. I'm like, oh, hi, guys.
Yeah, and it was just so weird because then you leave. All of a sudden, I have Sue Ann. And we were sworn to secrecy. We could not talk about why you were gone. I could not mention where you were. I just had to say you were doing something in the entertainment field. I had to be very vague about it. So we have a guest host.
Gosh, that sounds like porn.
It did. Actually,
it really did. It really did. But we signed a contract that was like 20 pages long. And if I breached anything in it, I could be fined for like up to $1 million.
Yeah, it was this crazy long contract. I remember you had your attorney go through it, and I had to sign some stuff too. It wasn't anything like yours, but I had to sign some stuff. But it was just awkward because I said, oh, we have a special guest host filling in for Kat while she's away. And it's this decrepit sounding old woman. I mean, she was like with his accent.
I don't like the music on this show. This show is trash. And now here's the traffic and the weather. She had to
and she didn't know
co-host
what
the
to
show. I would think, I wasn't there, but I would think the listeners were extremely confused why this old bag was suddenly co-hosting with you.
It was so weird. And so what I did was, so that to minimize her time on the air, I actually voice tracked, which in radio is pre-recording. I voice tracked a whole bunch of the morning show the day before.
Oh, that's smart.
Yeah, so I covered some of the main breaks and I did some content without her, but then I'd have her in for a few. So it was kind of an in and out because I didn't know how this was going to go. And, you know, you put someone on the air, it's never been on, and she's just kind of not sure what to do and what's going on. And, you know, and then they're like, no, you got to do some features with her too. And
and they had that, that was on the show. That is some of my favorite footage. You and Sue Ann as the morning team.
Rich writes, my girlfriend has worms.
I think the problem is that she's filthy. I mean, she's just dirty in general.
when she has to do Ask the Beaver, and she didn't understand why do we call it Ask the Beaver, and I had to explain to her that beaver was a slang term for, you know, lady parts.
I'm glad
And
you
she's
told
like-
her.
She's like, "Wait, these men wrought ladders to cat's vagina."
Yes, they
And I'm
do. Ask
Yes,
the Beaver.
they-
That was our segment, our advice segment.
And so she could not understand that. Do they address it to her private parts?
Yep. The mail is
Yeah.
delivered down there.
And she couldn't get over that. And I think she said, in this show, there's no class.
There is no
No.
class in this show. This show has no class whatsoever.
In this radio station, there's no class. I don't want it. I don't want shock jock at all. I really don't.
I was like,
And you know, the
But it
thing
was-
is, they
yeah.
drug test us. You're not allowed to consume any alcohol while you're doing the show. And they watched me like a hawk. And I was like, I could use a drink, but man, I understand the rules. She was slurring. When she was on the air with you, did it seem like she had a little something in her purse?
Oh, yeah. Everyone thought she was a drunk. Everyone
Okay.
thought she was drunk all the time. I did. I mean, you know, and one morning I said to her, I was like, you know, a little vodka in there, no smell, no tell. And she's like, what do y'all mean? No, she didn't hiccup.
I like this room too because there's a lot of windows and I can see out. This is my china cabinet, and in here's where I keep my china.
I thought she was trashed every morning. I thought she came in just lit. I did.
You know what I learned from Sue Ann is that not everyone can like you. Because before Sue Ann, I thought, you know what? If I'm just nice to somebody and they get to know me, I mean, why wouldn't I connect with somebody? Everybody's a human being. Everybody can see the goodness in my soul. No.
She hated you without ever meeting you. I
Yep.
mean, that was just odd.
New episodes, same fiasco. Darwin and Cat.
And when the episode finally airs, if you go and you seek it out, there are some scenes that didn't make it to the rerun or even to the actual broadcast.
Which I heard about these scenes. They weren't filmed on my end, but I think they were some of the best scenes.
Now, there was one that did air in the original broadcast, and they cut it because of what happened in the background they didn't see. Do you remember we saw the director's cut before it aired? And then
Yeah,
it
because they
didn't-
came to my house with a
Yeah.
special preview of it.
And so we were at a strip club. You and I were not doing remotes at strip clubs at this point anymore. That was early days. But they decided
We were
they
classy
wanted,
by this time.
we didn't have to go to those places anymore. And they wanted to. So the swap mom was Sue Ann. That was her name, Sue Ann
Yeah.
from Texas,
San Antonio.
San Antonio. And she was on a moral pedestal. She thought our show was trash. So they were looking for ways to mortify her. And they said, oh, tonight you're doing a remote from a strip club. And it was a strip club. They called around, they booked us to the strip club, and we had to go there. And when you got there was a sign on the door, and it had the ABC network logo, and it said, you know, warning, we're filming a TV show here tonight. You're going to be on TV. And these men were fleeing. They
Hey, Bob, where are you going? Gotta go. Gotta feed the cat.
they got to the door. I'd never seen people read a sign in their life like this before.
I'm glad they could read.
But you know how people just ignore signs all the time?
Of course.
Not these guys. They saw the sign.
Gone.
Boom, off. Yeah, they were peeling out of that parking lot on two wheels. So the producers are in a panic because the strip club is empty. And they're like, can you text and call whoever you know? We got to fill this place up. So
Oh my God.
So I'm calling and texting everybody I know. Free admission to the titty bar. Come on down.
Please come see some boobies, please.
And of course, all my friends are like, really? Awesome. And my cousin shows up with her boyfriend because he's like, yeah, I'm all into this. This scene plays out where my cousin had breast reduction surgery and they came back.
Wait,
And
her boobies came back?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So she had to have the surgery again. So they were not petite, right? So she's sitting at the bar with her boyfriend. And the producers kept saying, don't act like you really know anybody. You don't know these people, even though I knew everybody there.
They're all like your second, third cousins.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm related to people or they're friends. A few coworkers show up. So I'm playing cool. I don't know anybody. But I start getting really irritated at a point because Sue Ann keeps pointing at my cousin and said, look at that whore.
Oh my God.
Look at her. You know she paid for those. You know she's one of the strippers. Why is she here on her day off? Look at her all over that guy. He's going to pay her later to. So she's insulting the hell out of my cousin.
Wow.
Yeah. And in an Italian family, you don't insult the cousin, right?
Exactly. Just because she saw a little bit of side boob hanging out doesn't mean you have to be nasty, Sue Ann.
So I go off to the side to just cool down. And one of the people on the show comes over and said, who's the person she's picking? I said, it's my cousin. It's really pissing me off. And they said, you should tell her that. Because they were trying to instigate all through this. You know, but they're right.
Yeah.
Right. It's reality.
I lived it. Yep.
Yeah. So they were trying to instigate an incident and you should call her out on it. So finally I did. I was like, yeah, that's my cousin. All right. Your cousin's a stripper? Oh, I would be embarrassed. I wouldn't admit that. I'm like, no, she's not. She's had a breast reduction. She's here with her boyfriend.
They were
like,
even
what's
bigger
wrong with
before
you?
Sue Ann. Lay off.
Yeah. And so the on the fly interview, and it was part of this was in the director's cut. I forget how much of it was where she was like doing the on the fly. They called them was it on the fly? Is that what they called those?
Yeah.
Where they pulled you out?
Where they pulled you out and they interview you off, away from the scene.
And she was commenting, she didn't believe me. It was my cousin. And she's saying, I bet he knows that stripper. Like, why wouldn't you point out and introduce your cousin to me? Like, and I'm thinking, and then they did mine and they're saying, well, she said you don't really know her. And I was like, I mean, am I going to go up and how am I going to explain who she is? Like, I'm like, oh, this is some random bitch from Texas. Like, I don't know. So, well, I was doing mine in the background in the mirror was the stripper who had bent over and spread her
She
ass
completely opened her ass in back of you guys.
right in the
Like
mirror.
the barn doors just blew open.
And it's right behind me over my shoulder and it's right there. So that scene didn't get aired, but it was a great
But it was a
scene
great
because
scene.
you were gone. We got a band to come in so she could interview a band.
Not just a band.
It was a pretty big band too. The producers, I think, promised them airtime. This got cut from the episode too, by the way, speaking of deleted scenes. And they were so disappointed you weren't there because this was the band that liked us, Fuel.
Fuel, Hemorrhage in My Hand, which is just one of the most beautiful songs of all time. And they were just super, super great guys. And they were on tour. And I think they took a detour from the road to come to Albany to be on Wife Swap.
Yep, they did. It kills me because it might have been one of the best interviews I've ever done in terms of with a band. I mean, it was really, we talked about Hemorrhage in Your Hands. It was about his dying mother.
Yeah.
And Sue Ann totally wrecked the interview because
What'd she say? Do you even know how to spell hemorrhage, piece of trash?
Basically, I mean,
Is this devil music about smoking pot? Because I think this song's about drug usage and the devil.
Essentially, her answer was something like that. Yes, it was basically like I explained what the song, was about. I had played it. And then we talked about it. It was about his dying mother or something.
Did your mother smoke pot? Is that why she got that hemorrhage?
Well, why would you do something? Why would you make a song about your mother dying sound like that? It just sounds like a lot of screaming or something. She said something like that.
Okay, well, we almost went with the polka version, but
And they just looked at her. They just looked at her like,
who the fuck are you?
yeah. If they could have said that, I think they would have. And the fact they cut that scene because, and I don't know what look was on my face, but when they said that, there was no poker face at that point.
Right.
I felt bad for the band because they should have kept a little of the performance and a little bit of that, just her wrecking this moment. And they didn't. I know editing and whatnot. I get it. this is a huge band.
Yeah, I
And they
know.
give us,
I
like,
understand you have to fit this all into 45 minutes with commercials, but come on, it's a big band.
Yeah, oh, yeah. Yeah. And then they left, and she was just ragging on them, too. After they left,
Wow.
she's just like, aren't you uncomfortable? People like that coming in here all the time. And I'm like, what do you mean? All those piercings and tattoos. And I'm like,
I know. As we hold up our ink,
I got a few, lady.
I have a few here.
Just, aren't you worried they're going to steal things? Like, thinking, what are they going to steal from here, Mom? You know, like, oh, God.
So the daughter on the show, do you remember the daughter, Megan?
She seemed she needed a mom who got her.
Yeah.
And you seemed like you were that for her on the
I
show.
really liked her. She was a very typical petulant teenager. She had this perma look in her face like, I hate you, you're stupid. But I really wanted to connect with her, and I think I managed to do that a little bit, although she thought I was incredibly stupid.
What the hell? Like, are you stupid?
You know what I like? I really liked her and especially as a teacher and working with teenagers, I totally got her personality.
I did
now,
too.
Not back then.
Yeah.
And you got it. And I
got
could
it.
see you were a compassionate, you tried so hard to fit in with their family, and you tried to be nice mom. You tried to care about her. And you actually, I got to say, and you can fill in the blanks because I know, again, they try to make everything kumbaya. It seemed like you actually did something good between her and her dad. You helped.
One of the
I think
issues, thank you. One of the issues was she wasn't connecting with her dad. Her dad didn't know her. Tom would say things like, well, why would I care what she's doing with her friends? I don't care what 17-year-old girls do. And I'm like, you should. Just ask her. And I came up with this trivia game where they played like father-daughter trivia. And it seemed like by the end of the show, they kind of got a little closer.
All right, according to Megan, what is my end of the year goal?
To place at state.
God, you suck. It's national qualifying time.
Cat's right on the money here. Not only to have fun, but to get to know each other. You know, it's a wonder what we can do when we have the time.
And later that evening, it finally hits home to Megan how little her father knows about her due to his constant work schedule.
You are blessed with a beautiful home and an awesome business and 2 women who love you, and yet there's not one thing you would rather do than go to work. You should want to hang out with your 17-year-old daughter and see what goes on in her life.
I'm sad to say that Tom passed away in 2022. Cheers, Tom. You were the best fake husband ever.
Cat is keeping up the house to Sue Ann's high standards.
Ah, I found a bug.
Little fella, you're too little to cremate. I'm gonna just toss you.
In Texas,
Go, Megan!
Cat attends Megan's swim practice.
Everything was fine until we're reunited with our spouses and we meet the other mom. And that was an absolute disaster when I met Sue Ann.
Yeah, that was just, she came out guns a-blazing.
And it made me angry because you have to be responsible. Don't sit in the house and do nothing. Just plain old do it. Get out there and do it.
Because we were not filming. I just saw her in a hallway and I walked up to her and I said, Sue Ann, I just want to introduce myself. It was an absolute privilege to get to know your daughter. She is so smart. She is so sweet. And she was this like premier swimmer, like great athlete. And I was talking her up and she looked at me and said, well, that's nice. And she just had this look on her face. Like she couldn't believe I was being kind. Like I was about to pull something on her.
Like you got a trick up your sleeve. Like you're going to do something, an insult or something. I don't know.
That cat's going to steal my wallet. No, it's just not even better.
Megan, but you were honest, and Megan she just seemed like a sweetheart. She seemed like a really
she was a good kid. And you know what? I totally don't blame her for thinking the whole thing was stupid. She didn't want to participate. I mean, can you imagine if your parents did this show and you're 17, you'd be like, oh, fuck my life. This is so dumb. I totally got it.
I get it. I think you're totally right. It's so intrusive to your whole life.
So Megan, wherever you are, I thought you were a cool kid.
Yeah, and you know what? And I think she was more like her dad, personality-wise too. She was definitely a lot like, and I don't want to like, I feel bad a little bit shitting on her mom, but
I do too. I don't want to be mean about Sue Ann. Hey, we all have weird shit going on that makes us act the way we do, but God dang, lady, you're mean.
But I'm defensive of you because she was so mean about you.
Oh, lay off. Take her off the pedestal, please. She's nothing special.
So I have a little defensiveness there, but
people do ask, was anything fake on the show? And there were 2 things that were actually fake.
Oh, do tell.
The first one was I had to make one of Sue Ann's recipes, and they had me cooking a pasta recipe, and it was just so white bread, Italian-American girl here. I just want to go in with the garlic and all the good stuff. And I had to make this like white sauce weirdness. Fine, I'm following her recipe. There wasn't enough room in the kitchen to film a bunch of stuff, so they moved a bunch of cookware to the hallway. So there was one scene where Tom goes, Cat, did you put the pots and pans in the hallway? And I just played along and went, yeah, I thought they went there, something like that.
Hi, Cat. We're home.
Hey, Tom.
Let me walk around a little bit and see how you did.
What? I'm gonna expect my work.
Yeah. Well.
What? Did you find a spot?
No, I found some pans over here. I found some pots in the dining room. That was strange.
So that was fake because I never moved anything to the hallway. It was the production guys. And my room was not the disaster, the messy disaster that they showed when they threw my stuff around. They wanted to make it look like I was this crazy teenager.
Cat, one thing.
Oh, I know. This room's awful. I'm sorry.
Cat's room was just a wreck. It reminded me of the older kids when they were teenagers. She needs to improve that.
Yeah, that scene, it's funny, after all these years, I never asked you about that because that was not on brand for you.
It was not.
I mean, your desk was a disaster at work, but that was not.
I eventually cleaned it up, but no, I wouldn't go into somebody else's home and just like make it like a bomb went off. So no.
No, and I lived with you for a while. Your space was not like that.
Well, thank you.
It was like,
Just tell the viewers of Wife Swap I'm not a complete slob.
No, and I know you mentioned I never asked you about that. Like, what was up with the room?
Nothing.
Funny you mentioned that. Well, one thing they would do that I thought was interesting was, and most people don't realize this, is that they have somebody with headphones on and a little laptop transcribing everything going on constantly, and they're always recording your audio. So you might have a scene where there's one thing on camera, but your faces are turned, and they're putting in different audio, which I caught on to after the episode. I was like,
okay, that's how it works. Yep.
One thing I would forget about is that I was mic'd all the time. And I went into the bathroom. Yeah. Luckily, I was
Is it raining in my headphones?
Luckily, I was not doing more than just peeing.
Okay, this is number one. Okay.
Yeah. I'm in the bathroom and
you have to switch your little mic off when you go in the bathroom. I learned that.
Well, and you're allowed to do that. And I forgot.
Yeah.
So then nobody told me that I could do that either. So I went in. I think it was the first day they were filming without you there. And I come out of the bathroom and they're all at my desk and your desk, and they're just all there. And the whole crew stops and looks at me, and the little person with the headphones and their computer moves the headphone off one ear and goes, "You can turn off your mic when you go in there."
Oh,
and
okay.
And it suddenly dawned on me that everyone just heard me, like, and I must have had a look on my face like, how embarrassing. And the person with the headphones who had off goes, "At least we know you washed your hands," and gave me a thumbs up.
Darwin has excellent hygiene, always.
Thank you. So I thought that was kind of funny, but it was like, yeah, they were really so. But in that moment, that was one thing we didn't know going into it. So I realized that, and I smoked at the time, which was stupid. We've mentioned that before.
Right.
I went outside to have a cigarette, and Sue Ann, I mentioned earlier, the rectum mouth, because she smoked a lot. And when she realized I smoked, she's like, "Oh, they took away. I'm not allowed to have my cigarettes. Can I go have a smoke with you?"
They took my misty longs away.
Yeah. So I said, sure. But I realized we're outside and she's trying to talk shit about you and talk shit about the crew.
It never ended.
And no, it didn't. But I realized we're Mike, and the person with the little laptop has
transcribing everything.
Right. And this is right after the bathroom thing. So I'm outside. I'm like, I'm not saying a word that's going to be cut and pasted somewhere. And I'm just letting her go. And I'm like,
Just letting her go. Like, wind her up and let her go.
Yeah. And she was just like going on and on and on. And she's like, "I'm not allowed to smoke in the house either. I've been dying for a cigarette since I'm out here," and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, "Oh, well, yeah. She probably shouldn't smoke in the house. There's a kid there, Can I take one of these to go home? I hide it in my purse." And I'm like, "Sure."
Clink, clink in her purse. I want to tell you something that I'm not sure if I mentioned before. People have asked me like, "Oh, do you sleep with the dad?" Like, no, you get your own room. I mean, I know that's so gross. You get your own room. And not only did I have my own room, I had a guard posted at my door. Why did I have a guard? Because poor Tom was a sleepwalker. And they wanted to make sure that he didn't wander around the house, wander into my room and scare the hell out of me. So there was one guy, his name was Darnell, And Darnell's only job was to stay awake all night and sit in front of my door in a little chair.
I feel like that might be standard for the show in general too, right? Just have somebody
I don't
awake.
think so. They told me that it's because of the sleepwalking. You're getting a guard.
That's crazy.
He did not look happy in the morning when he was leaving.
I would not sleep well in some random person's house without knowing the crew doesn't have somebody there either. I would be weird with that.
It was weird. And
Wow.
they had also a little camera set up in the room in case I just wanted to pop on and, you know, do a little hot take about something. And I never did it. I just was so exhausted. And I would hear Darnell's head thumping against the door. And I'm like, I got to try to go to sleep now.
I know beforehand they did a lot of screening on you. I remember you had to do a bit of a psych exam, right?
Yeah, they
What
do
was
a
that like?
very extensive psychiatric exam. You have to fill out all these questions. And the ones I remember, you know, they were kind of typical questions to like weed out the lunatics. Like, do you hear voices in your head?
Yes.
Do you have urges to be violent? And the next
Yes.
one, yes, all the time. And the next one was, do you feel like people are talking about you? So I had a no, and a yes, because we do a radio show and I'm hoping people are talking about me, but it got flagged and I got pulled into a shrink's office with like 3 people going, we're very concerned about this answer. And I said, well, Darwin and I do a morning show and I'm trying to explain it. And they kind of went, okay, we'll let this slide, psycho. And they approved my psychiatric exam.
Okay. Oh, I mean, you do. We want people to talk about us.
Right.
Good or bad, right? I mean, and the voices could be the traffic person coming in. I'm just saying.
Exactly. It could
You know?
be a sudden blizzard report. It's not my brain misfiring, I think.
One thing that annoyed me a little bit was, well, there were 2 things that I should say. The one was the secrecy that they had been in contact with our bosses and our company. And there was stuff we had no idea that was going on behind the scenes as this was approaching that our bosses knew and that people we worked for knew. And I understand there was a lot of secrecy, but there's things they could have clued us in on. So that kind of annoyed me a bit, like the strip bar, or this or that, like things going on, like I had no heads up on. That kind of annoyed me. And the other one was when they came in, they said they did the Greeking.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that was overboard, where they called it Greeking the studio, where they were taking tape and putting it over like the logo on a
any
computer.
label, any
Yeah.
brand, because they don't have the rights to, you know, if there's like a Nike logo, they have to like Greek over it.
But I think they went too far with it. Like, remember, there were our tattoos. We had to have a release signed by the tattoo artist. Even though they're on my body, they belong to me. They were just overboard. Remember, we had to get our
Yeah, I
tattoo
have
artist?
tattoos from when I was, going to Northern Arizona University, and some psycho inked a dragon on my back. Good choices, Kat. And I had to track this person down. Like, just wherever they were in life. And he was like, what? Okay. And he signed off on it.
It was overboard. I just thought it was weird. And even the station logo, they covered up, which I thought was also weird because they said what city we were in and our names. Remember, they put a big sheet over the logo because I forgot why. They had some reason for it. But I had to wear shirts like no logos on it whatsoever.
Exactly.
You had to wear. But then they gave you wardrobe, but it was not wardrobe to keep, right?
Well, we had this one scene where I was trying to jazz up their funerals. Tom and Sue Ann owned a pet crematorium and cemetery.
We cremate anything from parakeets to 300-pound orangutans. Can you imagine shoving that in the smoker?
So they had very kind of like obviously sad funerals for poodles and stuff and little kitties and things. And I was trying to go in there and like liven up their funerals. So I said, hey, how about we do a New Orleans jazz funeral? And they're like, oh, okay.
In Texas, Tom goes along with one of Kat's ideas to lighten the mood at the funeral home by hosting an alternative memorial service for a client's dog, Frida.
Point of my ceremony is a new kind of grief counseling. We need something a little more celebratory.
I hope we're not offending the client.
Let's hear it for Frida!
So they gave us wardrobe to do that. And I put this black shirt on and I just feel something in the back that's like stabbing me. And the producer said, hey, be really careful with this shirt because we're returning them to Target in about an hour.
I was just like,
What a budget on that show.
And Sue Ann redecorated your house because she didn't like a lot of your decor. And they went to Marshall's and picked up a bunch of stuff that they also returned after the episode.
This home is mediocre. It smells like it's old. It's filthy.
You had some artwork in your house.
I had alien art by my friend Andy, who is just a fabulous author. He's a novelist. He's one of the funniest persons I've ever known, Andrew Demchak. And he did a bunch of alien art. And they're, I have a thing for aliens and UFOs. And I had them all over my house. And she's like, what is this trash?
I wouldn't have that on my wall. Heavens no.
She was just insulting it. So she wanted to redo your house. And
yeah. So she went to like a home goods store and bought like pictures of roses and I don't know, little puppies with umbrellas. It was just awful the way she tried to redecorate the house.
And I was there for some reason. I think I was there to just check in on your family and make sure they were alive.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
I was there. I forget. I think I showed up just to check on them because I knew how.
Thank God. Yeah.
She was like. But I just remember them coming in with all this stuff and they're like, be careful with it. It's got to go back to the store. Like, okay.
She left one night. I don't know if I told you this, but one night I wasn't there, but I was told that she was, sleeping obviously in the guest bedroom, and she got up and she goes, I just feel like this house is unclean. I just feel like there's a bad vibe here. And she just took off.
One of the mornings they mentioned something about they had a late night because she had an incident.
She had an incident.
They didn't really explain what that was, and they said it didn't involve the family. So I never knew what that was.
She was looking under the coffee maker for dirt.
It's filthy. Probably got cooties and everything else growing in here. Yuck. Oh God.
I mean, it just makes me feel like I was like the grossest person in the world. But and she stormed out.
Oh, she came in and complained about the coffee maker. I remember her coming in and ranting about, who do they call? The police?
I don't know who they called, but they wrangled her back. My whole thing the whole time was, you know what? Let's have fun with this. Like, let's take it seriously and do a good job, but it's kind of a goof. I mean, can't we just have a little fun with this? But she was not the kind of person to have fun with anything.
I also remember you moved for the show because you were renting a house and the landlord would not sign a release to film there.
Hell no, you're not going to film Wife Swap. So we did end up moving, and then the owners of the other house that we were renting were like, yeah, cool, do it.
I forgot that. You totally moved to do this show.
Yep.
I remember that was one of the delays. It was months and months and months.
And you know why I wanted to do the show? I just thought I could get our show some publicity and we can get to a bigger market. And the Darwin and Cat radio show could continue.
You did. You made a huge sacrifice so we could be bigger and do better because nobody was helping us to be bigger and do better.
Well, you say sacrifice. Some people would say dumb decision that threw everybody under the bus. But I don't actually regret it because I had a lot of fun. I look on the bright side. I met some great people who I'm still in touch with today. But my former life lives on Hulu. And sometimes that's a little difficult.
Yeah, I want to ask you about that because remember the day you left before you called me on the phone to whisper and I'm like, huh? You said, I hope this doesn't lead to the I forgot how you phrased it, but the curse of the reality show divorce.
Well, my advice to anyone is do not do a reality show with your spouse. But in all fairness, I can't speak for my ex, but this was kind of the last hurrah. You know, we were separating. So I thought, what the hell? Let's just do this.
You already knew things were right. It was kind of a why not? How is it for you to, like you said, you have this part of your life that's not your life anymore. That's forever.
It's really weird because everybody has mementos of their former marriages. You know, like, oh, here's our trip to Cleveland. Oh, here's a keychain with our faces on it. I'm on Hulu for the rest of my life with my ex-husband. And that is really weird.
I mean, I deleted photos from my first marriage, the wedding.
Yeah. There's no deleting Hulu.
Right. You can't. That's forever.
Nope.
I mean, someday some version of Nick at Night might be running that as, 50 years from now, right? And you're never, right? And so that's, you're chill with it.
I just have to be chill with it. In fact, I actually saw that episode again recently, and I hadn't watched it for many, many years. My fabulous stepdaughter and her fabulous fiance were visiting us, and she's like, Cat, we have to watch Wife Swap. And I'm just like, oh. So we throw it on. I built a blanket for it, and I hid under it. and everyone's watching it and everyone's enjoying it. And at the same time, she's on Reddit going, oh, actually, people really like you. They don't really like your ex very much, but they like you.
Oh.
So I got through it, and it's okay. It's all right.
Yeah, Reddit can be a harsh place at times. But that's so cool that your new family watched it with you and got to see, because in a way, people don't get to see before you were before you were there. What were you like? What was your life?
Well, they cool definitely know. I'm really the same
all.
person. I really, really am the same person. I'm just not doing as much bad television these days.
I mean, it was fun. I will say, I will always appreciate the fact that you gave me an opportunity to do that. We had to wait a while after filming, and we couldn't say a word at all. And we had to be top secret about this. And we were sitting on it. Finally, we got an air date. We got to see that director's cut. The station said we're going to throw a viewing party. And in upstate New York, they have OTB, off-track betting parlors. And so they booked it at this one, and it looked like it was a leftover set from a 1980s game show. They had like the flashing light bulbs in the floor.
Did they used to film Press Your Luck here? What is this?
You had like a knockoff of Press Your Luck, like the dollar store version of it. Right. And it was just mirrors everywhere and gold. I mean, it was
very quote unquote fancy.
So a lot of people showed up. It was great. It was funny. People loved the episode. And finally, the next morning, we could talk about the show because it had aired. So we could talk about that it was happening, but we couldn't say anything else till after it aired. And the next morning, we spent our whole morning show talking about it. Lots of calls. We were riding high on a cloud. And all of a sudden, the door to the studio opens. I think it was the first time the owner of the company ever came back to our studio. And I'm expecting him to congratulate you, say, good job, right? I'm waiting for it. And he looks me dead in the eye. And he goes, $4 an hour? Because I said that on the show.
Darwin,
look at you.
How much money do you make doing a morning radio show? And you just freaking trolled her and said $4 an hour.
So what you make, if you broke it down into hours, just throw me a number out.
$4 an hour.
$4 an hour. $4 an hour. Who works for $4 an hour?
But the guy that owns the company.
He didn't like that.
No, because he wasn't known for paying very well. And I didn't know if he was mad or not, because all he said to me was $4 an hour. And then I kind of laughed and I didn't know what to say. And he goes, I didn't know I was paying you that much. Do you remember that? He made a joke.
Yeah. And then he just
left.
disappeared. Puff, cloud of smoke, gone.
So we never got an answer, right? Did he enjoy the show? He clearly watched it. Did he ever talk to you? Like, did he ever say, Kat, I liked the show?
No, he never mentioned anything to me. But I might have been in a little bit of a trauma fog. I mean, not only did I deal with Sue Ann, do all this stuff, we had to film at a pet crematorium, and I had just lost Dave Kitty.
Oh,
so
yeah,
not to be a total
right.
bummer, but he was my soul cat for my whole life. And he was the greatest cat, black cat, greatest cat in the world. And although I knew I was going to San Antonio, I didn't know I was going to a pet crematorium. So I walk in and I'm looking around and I said, is that an urn for a St. Bernard?
I don't know if that's an urn for a St. Bernard. I don't even want to think about it.
And I realized that I was at a crematorium.
Oh my God. Am I actually in a pet cemetery?
And what you don't know is that they cut, because I started crying and I was showing everybody the Dave Kitty tattoo on my arm. And it was the sweetest thing. Everybody gathered around me. And for like a half an hour, everybody comforted me, the director, the producers. And we just talked about Dave Kitty and we talked about everybody's pets that they loved.
Which is so cool. I mean, Dave Kitty, and I got the pleasure and privilege of knowing Dave Kitty, who was an amazing kitty.
He was rad. He was rad. He did the Dave wave.
Cool.
He'd see me, he'd salute me. He was an amazing cat. And so they comforted me. I pulled myself together, and then they turned that camera on, and they were ready to make me look psychotic. I mean, great.
I mean, that was such a great line, too. And I remember that line. You walked in, and you saw that it was just some grotesque, like, vase. Like,
it was big. It could fit, I think, of many, many schnauzers.
I don't know if that's an urn for a St. Bernard. I don't even want to think about it.
It could fit a lot in there. So I just think overall the experience was quite the experience. What do you remember best from it? What was your favorite thing about it? Anything that it ended?
Yeah, my favorite day was the pool party. There was a pool party scene, and it was a real party. Like Tom and I were splashing around in the water. I tried beef jerky for the first time. I'd never had beef jerky before, but I was in Texas and I was kind of gagging on it, but I got through it. And it was just such a lovely day. I was getting along with Megan. I was getting along with Tom, and it was a very real moment. And that was before I went to meet Sue Ann. Before that, everything was fine.
Hey, you know what? On the bright side, I had, a week and a half with Sue Ann. So,
Oh my God. I know I'm sitting here complaining. I only met her for less than an hour. You spent a week with that woman.
It was something. Although there was a long tail from this. And correct me if I'm wrong. And I guess we could probably close with this. Did the guy that was constantly emailing you ever stop asking you where you lived? Do you remember this? Did I get that right? There was a guy, right?
Yeah. So after the show aired and for the next 8 or 9 years, I would get messages on my Facebook and it was 2 questions. Where do you live? And how much do you weigh?
Well, what's the answer?
You know I live in Las Vegas and I'm never telling you the other answer. My husband doesn't even know.
I don't even know what year you were born. The other day, someone's like, how old's Kat? I'm like, I have no idea.
I have no idea. No idea. You once told me that, like, if I died and they had to do my headstone, they wouldn't have, like, the start date.
All right, I don't know. You've never, you told me once. And
Yeah,
I forgot.
I was drunk.
And you were. And you said, don't remember this. And I didn't.
Proudly Generation X.
Yeah, you're somewhere.
That's
and
it.
I'm like the one in between.
You're an elder millennial.
Yes.
But you hate that.
Geriatric millennial.
Oh, that's much worse.
Yeah, that's what the doctor called me.
That's terrible.
So is it zillennial? Is that what you call the in-between? How do you say that?
Zenial,
Zillennial, whatever the hell it is. I'm that.
Okay.
I'm that. I don't know how. I couldn't tell you how old. You hold a gun to my head. How old's Kat? I'll be like,
dude, I'm laminated. You're never going to find out. You can't guess.
I used to say we're the same age. I don't know.
Of course.
39.
Yeah, forever.
Right. I was 39. I was 35. So I just remember that guy was always, yeah. Oh, the other thing that used to happen more to you, but also a little bit me for a while was for probably like 3 or 4 years after it aired, I would get random Facebook friend requests from people in the Midwest. It was always people in the Midwest. Remember that?
Yeah. Yep. They saw you in reruns and they had to reach out. I would always get recognized in Walmart. The couple times like I would go to Walmart. Oh, I got to pick some up. It's a Walmart. Okay. And then, excuse me, were you on Wife Swap?
And you're like, yeah.
Yeah. And a couple of weeks ago, when you're on Facebook and you get your messages, but there's like this other folder. It's like the spam folder.
Yep.
I ventured over to have a look at it. I got this one message that said, you were on Wife Swap. Lol. Yeah.
Thanks for
that sums it up. I was on Wife Swap. Lol.
My first handful of years of teaching, Wife Swap was on Lifetime for a while. Kids would come in after the episode was on and they wouldn't ask me. They would tell me, you were on Wife Swap. Did you know you were on Wife Swap? No shit.
I was.
But I'm thinking, really? Like, yeah, I was. How come you didn't tell us that? I'm like, I don't know.
I don't open with that usually.
When I was talking about the Great Depression, it didn't occur to me to tell you guys. Oh, by the way.
Well, we were discussing the Marshall Plan, but I could have slept it in.
Just let you guys know, just right before that Great Wall, or the Great Wall of Berlin. What am I saying? I'm confusing
You're a good history teacher.
Yeah, I'm terrible at my job. Yeah. The Berlin Wall. I just thought I'd mention, by the way, guys. Yeah. So every now and then a kid like tells me I was on the show. I'm like, thanks for letting me know that. Thank you.
You know what, Darwin? I feel oddly better about the whole experience now. I don't think I've ever discussed it at length like this. So thank you.
Well, this was fun.
This is therapeutic.
So one last question before we go. Where do you live and how much do you weigh?
No!
Are you meaner than a Texan?
Do nothing. He needs to do it. Just plain old do it. Get out there and do it. He needs to do it. Just plain old do it. Get out there and do it. I don't want it. I don't want shock jock at all. I really don't. I wouldn't have that on my wall. Heavens no. $4 an hour. In this radio station, there's no class. Mind-boggling. And I mean mind-boggling to me. Like, totally, like, mind-boggling. There is not one thing I miss. Not one thing. No. Not one thing. Nothing. No. I'd be lying if I said something. I'd be truthful with you. No, absolutely not. Nothing. God.